What's going on, Falcons fans? Logan here. Welcome back to Rise Up Rundown. And if you're new here, welcome. So, in this video, we're going to go over your mailbag questions. And these are all the questions that I was able to, collect and answer for this video. So if there's any new questions that came in that I might have missed, I do apologize in advance. But I thank each and every one of you for all the questions. And before we get started, there's actually another thing I want to thank you for. And that is actually tuning into the last video with the collaboration with Out of Your Falcon Mind podcast. John and Mike, I'm incredibly thankful to have them on the show. And, it's just a blessing to have other Falcons content creators join your own show. And it seemed like every single one of you enjoyed the show and you all tuned in and you're giving them a subscription as well. So I just want to say thank you for checking out their stuff and for checking out the video we made together. So that was really awesome. And there will be more collaborations with them and other Falcons creators in the future. So stay tuned for all of that. But with all that being said, let's get straight into it. Flavius Hobbs asks, if the Falcons are drafting best player available regardless of position, who might be available when they get to pick? Who might be considered the top 10 prospects based on talent and physicality? All right, so let's look at this from positions. If there's any pass rushers at 8 that could be available, realistically, the only one that I can kind of see being at 8 is Jalen Carter, all just because of the off-field stuff. And, is it worth getting him? You can't really deny the upside as a football player. And maybe with Calais Campbell and all the veterans coming in, we can coach up this young guy and get his mind right. And plus, he'd be playing for the state of Georgia, so everyone's already rooting for him. But other than that, I don't see how Tyree Wilson can be available at 8. And then there's some other players that could be available at 8. Maybe, like Lucas Van Ness could be available or so. But I don't think that any other player besides Jalen Carter would be really worth it at number 8 for pass rusher. As far as corner goes, I think Christian Gonzalez is probably more likely to be available at 8 than Devin Witherspoon. But either way, if we had to take one of those guys, I wouldn't complain. Bijon Robinson, of course, I don't see how he's I just don't see how he's not going to be available at 8. I don't think he's going to be taken earlier than that, I don't think. Even though he probably is the best player in this draft. And then the receivers, I'm not expecting any receivers to be taken before 8. So Quentin Johnston or Jackson Smith and Jigba probably will be available. But those are the best players that I think would be available at 8. And if we have to trade up, obviously at that point you can get Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson. But I'm thinking probably staying at 8 and seeing the best player available is probably the best move for us. Terry Turner asks, do you think the Eagles will trade up with the Falcons to acquire running back Bijon Robinson, or will the Falcons select him themselves? Hashtag rise up. Good question, Terry. Because I feel like those two teams, a lot of people are looking at other teams that need a running back. The Cowboys got rid of Ezekiel Elliott, and also he'd still be playing in Texas. So it makes sense for the Cowboys to get him. But really good running teams are not going to say no to a good running back. Arthur Smith for the Falcons and Nick Sirianni for the Eagles. I don't think they're going to look at them and think, let's just not get him. Terry Fontenot is a best player available guy, or at least he says he is. And I'm imagining the Eagles still want to get more talent on that roster. But what do I think is going to happen? So I think the Falcons would probably get Bijon. I don't see a world where the Falcons trade down. I think the Falcons know that despite all the money and accusations they've made, they also know that they still need great players. So I don't really see, I don't want to say that it can't happen where we trade down. It could happen, but I would think that the Falcons are smart enough to know that they shouldn't really pass on elite talent. Dak Dargani asks, would drafting an edge rusher first round make the Falcons have a top 10 defense on paper? I think so, actually. I think so. And I know it sounds kind of crazy. Well, maybe I'm going to change this. Yeah, I think I'll change this. I think I'll change it to like a top 15 pass rush. To be fair, Calais Campbell is not exactly who he once was. Grady Jarrett is still there. But then you got, you know, David Onyemata and Arnold Ebiketie, and then say we get Jalen Carter. Those are big names, but I don't know about top 10, only because, you know, Onyemata and Campbell, I love that we got them, but I don't think people are going to put them, you know, and you know, they're not going to look at this and say, suddenly we definitely have a top 10 on paper. So I'll say top 15 until, you know, I hate to say prove us wrong, because they are great players, but just exceed expectations. I'm trying to find the right way to put it, but I feel like it wasn't, but I hope that made sense. Jonathan Bell asked, now with all the defensive additions, what would you say our sack and takeaway totals will be or rank? So the sack number, it's funny because like, this was a question not long ago. Like someone asked, how many sacks do you think we'll get? And I just brain farted. I don't know where it came from. I was like, we're going to get 10 sacks. And I felt so good about saying that. And then I just looked back. I'm like, wait, I wasn't thinking. I didn't even process. I was like, did I just say that we're going to get 10 sacks? Like, I didn't even process that. That was just a brain fart. But sacks, I don't know. I think last time I predicted around that like 26 to 32 range. And then takeaways. I don't want to embarrass myself again and say a number that just doesn't sound right. So instead, I'm just going to save that for a video and say like, you know, I'll realistically look at what we got and just be like, hey, this is what I realistically can see happening. So I'll probably just have to save that for a video, if that makes sense. Terry Turner asked, will the Falcons still draft Christian Gonzalez with the 8th overall pick? Or if not, draft a defensive end or trade back? Rise up. So I was incredibly set on the Falcons getting Christian Gonzalez. Now that is still a possibility. I know Jeff Okudah is still, you know, they didn't give him his 5th-year option or anything. So maybe it's just kind of like a prove-it year for him. And if it doesn't work out, I can see the upside of, well, Okudah didn't work out, but it's not going to matter because now we have Gonzalez. So, you know, I guess I get it, but, you know, I guess, you know, the possibility of getting a corner rose a little bit more than I thought it was. Like, I had it as the #1 likely scenario, the Falcons would do in the 1st round. Then I had it as the 5th, and now I'm saying it's maybe like the 4th. But is it likely that we get him? In my opinion, I still don't think it's likely. I think the Falcons are probably not going to trade down either. And, you know, getting a defensive end, only if Jalen Carter is available at 8 can I kind of see it happening. And then if the camera angle changed, it's because my camera just died for a second and now we're back. But anyway, yeah, if there's a defensive end at 8, I would only get one if Jalen Carter is available. Other defensive players, like if Lucas Van Ness was at 8, I just think that's a bit of a reach to get him at 8. So, I think unfortunately, but also not unfortunately, we're probably going to see an offensive player in the 1st round, probably. I'm kind of starting to just get that gut feeling it's going to be Bijon Robinson. I mean, we're still days away from the draft. Anything can change, but that's just, I don't know. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling a Bijon Robinson at 8. But if it's not him, I can see Jalen Carter at 8. Or Christian Gonzalez, I'm not going to rule out because maybe they just kind of see Okudah as like, you know, like, okay, we'll just give him a shot. But how confident do they feel that this is going to work out? Maybe they're not so high on it and they get Gonzalez. So I don't know. Nico Man 11 asked, when did you start being a Falcons fan? I was a Falcons fan since 2015. I am very familiar with Georgia. I've been to Atlanta and North Georgia numerous times, and now that my brother has found a new home in Atlanta, I can only imagine that I'm probably going to be in Atlanta a lot more than I was. And now here I am thinking that Atlanta has a possibility of being my new home in the future. But before then, I was not living in Georgia. I only chose the Falcons because when me and my brother were playing Madden, frankly, I didn't know how selecting a team worked. And so when he chose the Dolphins, because we were, you know, I mean, I'm still in Florida, but like when we were living in Florida, we thought that was like the only Florida team. We didn't know there was the Bucs and the Jags yet. We were totally, I knew nothing about NFL. I was totally new. I wasn't even into sports before 2015 and 14 even, to be honest with you. It was like a new hobby that we found. And, you know, I didn't know how it worked. And so I was like, oh, well, I guess I should find a team that I have some sort of relations with. But at the time, I didn't know there were the Jags and the Bucs. So I was like, well, I don't want to choose the Florida team like he did. I'll just choose the Georgia team because, you know, I'm already familiar with Georgia anyway. And then my little kid, part of me thought I was going to go to the University of Georgia and play running back because, I don't know, just because I'm a kid. Well, I wasn't a little kid, but I was, how old was I? I just know I was in high school, but yeah, it was just kind of out of excitement, to be honest with you. Like, I just was like, oh yeah, it's a Georgia team. I've been to Georgia so many times. But now that actually might become a reality, to be honest. But we'll see. AJ Evans asks, should the Falcons draft a linebacker? I think Michael Walker is on thin ice. I agree that Michael Walker is on thin ice. But I don't think that getting a linebacker, at least in the first one to, honestly, I know this is kind of rough, but the first 1 to 4 rounds. Yes, I really don't think that getting a linebacker in the first 4 rounds is the right thing to do. I think there's probably better positions that you could address because linebacker is an important position, but I don't think that it's a position to draft early on because it's just so hard to hit on a linebacker. But we do need a linebacker, so if we have to draft one, it should be later on in the draft, in my opinion. Unless there's like a super good linebacker that they just know is going to work, but that's just what I think. RC Plane Builder 2 asks, what will be the stat line for these players? All right, so I will just read off of it right now. Desmond Ridder, so at the moment, I'm probably going to make a video predicting every offensive and defensive player stats heading into the season later on in the video, but here's just my way too early thoughts. Desmond Ridder, I'll say that he gets around, so okay, this might sound kind of bad, but I actually don't think he's going to get 4,000 yards yet. I think he's got a lot of developing to do, and it's not like the receivers that he's got is like amazing, and they're probably going to run the ball a lot. So I think he'll get around like that 3,900 yard range, so it's still close. But if he hits 4,000, it's like literally just 4,000. It's not like, you know, anything higher, basically. And then how many touchdowns? I don't know. Like, I'll give him like 17, 16, 17 touchdowns around there. And I'm only saying all this because I just think that we're still going to be a run-heavy team, and I think that Ritter's probably not going to be amazing right off the bat. And then Heineke, that one's kind of tough because, you know, how much is he going to play? Is Ridder going to suck so bad and Heineke steps in? So let's just assume Ridder is not bad and Heineke, like, barely plays. I'm not expecting hardly anything from him. I'm kind of expecting around that, like, maybe that, what's realistic for a backup quarterback? I'm not expecting him to play that much. So I would put it as like 500, 600 yards and like 3 touchdowns. Only because I really don't think he's going to play that much if Desmond Ridder is good throughout the entirety of the year. And then Calais Campbell. So I'll say probably... I'll say 7 sacks. I think there's a lot of great talent around him. And I think he's going to improve. And I think he wants to play for Arthur Blank, who's kind of, got the same mindset and vibes as him. I think he'll improve for sure. And then Kyle Pitts. I think this year he'll bounce back. I can see a 1,000-yard season, and touchdowns is a little difficult to predict, but surely he'll improve a little bit. So I'll put 6 touchdowns. London, I think he'll get probably his first 1,000-yard season and get around 10 touchdowns. Maybe so. 10 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, somewhere around there. Well, how many touchdowns did I give Desmond Ridder to make it make sense? Well, I don't know. It is way too early. I'll have to kind of mathematically think this through at some point. But, and then Jarrett, I think he'll have a good year. Finally, he's not double teamed, so I'll give him 8 sacks as well, actually. I think we're going to be a better pass rush unit this year. And then Zacchaeus, I think it's going to be a quiet, good year for him. I'll give him 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that probably was not mathematically correct with how many touchdowns I gave Ridder or how many yards I gave Ridder. So I don't know. It was kind of just me thinking and having fun with it. But you'll probably see me predict every player's stats later on in the year. But it was still fun to predict. And I thank you all for the questions. And let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I'll see you guys with a video this Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Love and appreciate you all for the support. And as always, rise up.